What's up, everybody? Oh my God. The amount of mind blowing stuff that's coming out day by day, minute by minute, like can hardly keep up with it. But I mean, I normally like to do a live stream at night, fire off clips during the day, but so much stuff has been coming out today in the past 48, 72 hours that I've been trying to just compile everything and then, put it neatly and nicely in an organized flow for you guys at the end of the night. Cause I mean, I'm trying to understand exactly what happened here myself. I mean, I feel that I know what happened, but it's so interesting to hear the explanations that are being put forward and people being called out for their BS. So I have a nice sequence of about 8 or 9 videos with you that I think will at least put things in a much clearer perspective with the information that we have available now. So number one, if you have not seen it yet, this is the current acting director of the Secret Service. And this is what she had to say, I believe yesterday or the day before.
So the buck stops with you?
The buck stops with me. I am the director of the Secret Service. It was unacceptable, and it's something that shouldn't happen again.
Minutes after Trump took the stage Saturday in front of thousands of people, gunman Thomas Matthew Crooks wounding the former president and 3 others before a Secret Service counter-sniper took him out.
I'm being told that the shooter was actually identified as a potential
Threat.
person of suspicion. Units started responding to seek that individual out. Unfortunately, with the rapid succession of how things unfolded, by the time that individual was eventually located, they were on the rooftop and were able
More on
to
that later.
Fire off at the former president.
ABC News now learning that heavily armed local police were actually stationed inside the building. The gunman climbed, but they missed him. Butler town officials confirming that after they became aware of the threat, a local police officer climbed up to the roof and confronted Crooks, but did not succeed in stopping him.
What was your reaction when you saw the events unfold on Saturday?
Shock, and then concern, obviously, for the former president.
Investigators now trying to determine whether roof access had been properly locked down. The shooter climbing up seemingly unimpeded, about 400 feet from the stage, with a direct line of sight on the former president.
Should that roof have been secure, period?
That building in particular has a sloped roof at its highest point.
Real quick, this is the sloped roof she's referring to, but it's interesting when you look at this roof, which the shooter was on, and then this roof, which clearly has a higher, more angled slope. So if she's saying that this is risky, then why isn't this too risky?
And so, there's a safety factor that would be considered there, that we wouldn't want to put somebody up on a sloped roof.
Oh, no.
And so, the decision was made to secure the building from inside.
Cheeto says the Secret Service was responsible for the inner perimeter of the rally, where Trump was, but local police were responsible for the outer perimeter, where the gunman was located. In Washington, lawmakers demanding answers, calling on the Secret Service director to appear before Congress.
We will be transparent both internally with my own folks and externally with members of Congress and with the American public. That's what the public deserves.
The president and Homeland Security Secretary said today they had 100% confidence in you, but there are some members of Congress calling on you to resign.
I appreciate the Secretary's comments, and we're going to continue to be transparent and communicate with people.
Do you plan to stay on? Absolutely.
I do plan to stay on.
Psycho. I'm glad they mentioned that congressional hearing because that just came out today. And dear God Almighty, was it more shocking than you could have ever imagined? Here's the latest from what Congress and the Senate found out today from speaking with the Secret Service.
To you, we just got a big information dump, and some of it is deeply, deeply troubling. So I'm going to hold your hand and walk you through this. Just bear with me here. A lot of notes that I'm going to look at here. Just about a couple minutes ago, these senators came out of this briefing with the Secret Service. They've been asking for it for days now. Finally got it with the director and Secret Service staff. And the top headline that has come out of it, according to Senator John Barrasso, just spoke to him as soon as he hung up on this briefing. He said that apparently the Secret Service had identified as a character of suspicion this man, this shooter, because they saw a rangefinder on him as well as a backpack. And this all happened more than an hour before the shooting actually occurred. So they saw the guy
Unreal.
and they identified this guy as suspicious. Now, more details coming from a source familiar here who was also in the meeting tells me that about 10 minutes before former President Trump went onto the stage, they had gone from looking at this guy as suspicious to now looking at him as a threat. That is coming from this briefing that the senators were in. They were told that Secret Service had called it in to a center that this guy they now identified as a threat about 10 minutes before President Trump walked on stage.
I mean, how? I'm asking this all rhetorically, of course, to be YouTube friendly, but even the most anti-Trump person out there, explain that. Just make sense of that. Secret Service knew of an armed man on the roof 10 minutes before Trump went on stage, and they let him go on stage.
And they still allowed him to walk onto that stage. I'm told the Secret Service agent in charge there was on the phone with local and state police about the threat while the shooting was taking place. That's huge. And that is raising a lot of concerns and now major calls for the director of the Secret Service to step down immediately.
Oh, boy. Yeah. That's going to be an interesting one, man. I'm really happy with myself the way I put this lamp together. It was quite the mental gymnastics to put this timeline together in my head, but I think it's playing out nicely. So here is what the local police of Pennsylvania of this town are saying. They are outraged by the narrative that the Secret Service is putting forward.
After an event like this, but what prompted me to post and on the social media platform last night, and of course, obviously talk to you today, is that our local Butler Township Police, their duties that were assigned to them, and we have an operational plan that details all that, were strictly traffic detailed. They were not required or not detailed to any security detail related to the event. It's strictly traffic.
Makes sense.
Obviously, to help people coming in and out of the event, if there is an emergency, those type of things. We saw the number of people, the number of cars at the event. And I was so frustrated and quite frankly hit my limit again last night when I saw, again, Secret Service says it was the responsibility of the local police department. That's absolutely not correct.
Yeah, the local police department is not the entity in charge of the safety and protection of a president or a former president. But once this started to happen, once this shooting began to unfold, the local officers did then try to assist, try to see if they could do anything, right?
That is absolutely correct. Local officers that were in the general area, again, performing their assigned detail, once they had some information over there that was transferred to their comms, they went over to look for the suspect that was identified and were going around the building. In fact, you can see them on the video, one of the officers, and people were pointing, he's up on the roof. Well, we had two officers. There was no ladder in the area. We had two I want to correct that. There was no ladder in that area. But two officers, one was lifting the other one up. I mean, you can see the pitch of the roof, which is not that steep. We can get to that in a few minutes. But to the edge of the roof for them to try to look up and to see where the suspect is, the officer that's being lifted, he is using both hands to grab the edge of the roof to try to pull himself up. In that process, he exposes himself. The shooter turns and points his gun at him. Obviously, he is not in a position. He's pulling himself up with both hands to wield his gun. So obviously, he fell back. He actually, in the process of falling back, he ended up injuring himself. He was not retreating. If he was in a position to engage the shooter, he would have done so. And that message that's out there is disgusting.
Did you, that's new information, so thank you for that. Last question for you. We're seeing reporting that Crooks's parents reported that he was missing and called the local police. Can you shed any light on that?
No, I cannot. Obviously, I just heard that, I'll say, within the last few hours, so I can't shed any light on that.
All right. Thank you.
So obviously the major questions that are presented with this information is that apparently contrary to what's been said, this kid did not use a ladder to get up there, because there's a lot of reports of a ladder being fixed to the side of the building, which he was able to climb up. So that obviously creates the question, how did he get up to the top of the building? I mean, at the very least, I guess we found out that this was a station for not only local police, but snipers. They were inside the building that this guy went up on top of. So if it took a police officer being propped up on top of another police officer's shoulders to get on top of the building, how did this kid get up onto the building without going inside and without having a ladder? We don't know that yet, but I can't wait to find out or to hear their silly sounding reason for I mean, if it's consistent with what we've been hearing about all the other questions, that's going to be an interesting one to find out. And then also the fact that he said that the cop put a warning out on the radio, which we were all saying, all right, if he engaged with this guy, with the shooter on the roof, if the cop saw the shooter on the roof, why didn't he radio it in? Apparently he did. So in addition to Secret Service knowing 10 minutes beforehand that there was a threat, and the police radioing in prior to it happening, there's a threat, why wasn't he dragged off stage? In a logical world, that's what would happen. But we're in this deep state dystopia where they're trying to make sense of things that don't make sense because they think that we're too stupid to know what actually happened. So somebody I've been leaning on a lot with this because, extremely smart guy and worked in this field, Dan Bongino, former Secret Service. So this is what he had to say about the latest information.
And said to me that the rooftop that the shooter, a high-level source reached out to me last night and said to me that the rooftop that the shooter engaged from, as I told you last night during the Tucker Carlson special and then on Don Jr.'s show, was actually supposed to be posted by a local police department or non-Secret Service counter sniper team. So we're clear on the facts. There were 2 counter sniper teams from the Secret Service, 2. Those 2 were assigned to the scene. That rooftop was obviously deemed a threat. It was a line of sight issue. So because they didn't have the assets, and I'll get to why in a few minutes, it involves Dr. Jill Biden, who has an extremely low threat level relative to Donald Trump. This is the breaking news. For some reason, that local police part, this is not about Monday morning quarterbacking, folks. Again, this is not a football game. These are people's lives. For some reason, that local tactical counter sniper team didn't make it to the roof. What I'm hearing from sources is that tactical team positioned it through a second floor window, which cedes the high ground. Now, I wish I wasn't breaking this on my show. The fact that nobody is comfortable talking to the media because they're such insider hacks, they're afraid they're all going to be exposed and they all have to come to me, candidly, folks, is a travesty. But think about what I just told you. For a second, everybody take a pause and a timeout. Think about the multiple security failures here and the lying. There was supposed to be a tactical CS team on that roof. They didn't make it to the roof. They chose a second floor window instead, which cedes the high ground, obviously, and nobody noticed. Nobody noticed that post, that CS post was unmanned. Nobody had any idea. Now, this explains a lot. I gotta control the expletives. Really. The bullshit I just said that. The bullshit you're hearing coming out of Secret Service headquarters. Now does it make sense? Did you see a few days ago, and by the way, they're watching right now, make no mistake. Did you see a few days ago, I don't know, about 3-4 days ago, the Secret Service came out with a statement through this PR flack, Guglielmi and others, and these guys should all resign immediately. And did you hear what they said? They did it kind of in a winky nod, sleazy kind of way, where they tried to pawn this off on the local. The local CS team never made it to the roof, counter sniper team. So when the Secret Service got massive backlash for appearing to pawn this off on the locals, even though what they were saying was true, even though it was the Secret Service's responsibility to check that the post was manned, the Secret Service then dialed the story back and said, oh, we're not trying to blame the locals. This is our responsibility. And then when they got backlash for saying, okay, well, if it's your responsibility, why was there no one on the freaking roof? Why was there no one there? What did the Secret Service director say? She came out with this ludicrous absurdity that, I don't know, man, the slope of the roof, we shouldn't be up there. It's like an OSHA violation or something. What, bro? What did you... Let me tell you an OSHA violation. There are things in the motorcade and other security mechanisms we use, I'm sure probably aren't safe to be around. You think I sat there and went, OSHA, can we get a ticket on this item here? You do your job. You do your job and you keep the president alive. That excuse about the slope of the roof is another lie. Are you getting now what's going on? The Secret Service is lying so much and so often to try to cover up this total Charlie Foxtrot, if you know what that means, you military guys out there. They're lying so much that they're forgetting their lies. And they're not savvy enough, like a Jen Psaki, to lie effectively. There was supposed to be a local post. They never showed up, and no one from the Secret Service checked. They never showed up on that roof. Nobody checked. It also explains the possible hesitation by the other CS teams when this guy was encountered on the roof. Maybe they confused him for someone else, thinking it was posted up by locals, and it took maybe a couple of seconds to unscrew that. You're not hearing this anywhere else.
One more clip from Bongino. I mean, this is creating so many questions. I'll get to that in 1 second. Just one more clip from him that's pretty damning.
Impeachable source. Let's just showing Tucker some material from an unimpeachable source, let's just say, on the matter. That post, according to my source, that roof was supposed to be a police post. It was supposed to be someone there. They're now making up excuses, saying the pitch of the roof. My source says to me no one knows why the post didn't show up. But so that's a nonsense story they're putting out in the media. And I was also told that the Secret Service director has been given instructions from the administration and the DHS secretary. If you want to keep your job, you'll keep your mouth shut about this. Wow. They're not putting that out there, but if you get those site post logs and those police instructions and there was a post on there and they didn't show up and no one checked, someone could have got your dad killed within millimeters.
So this creates so many questions. And one thing that is really bugging me is the fact that I've just been looking for a simple ballistics map. Just how many shots were fired? Where'd they go? And it seems that's not even clear yet to this point how many shots were fired in total. So like he said, they keep trying to pawn this off on the local police. I know, yeah, the local police are supposed to be there, yada, yada, yada. You saw that wasn't true. Here's another Pennsylvania police representative.
All law enforcement were notified of a suspicious person somewhere on the grounds. Once the suspicious individual was identified as being in the vicinity of the AGR building, our police, who were primarily assigned to traffic duty and traffic control, did in fact, because of proximity, move towards that building to assist in trying to find and identify, the suspicious person. It's a light manufacturing office building. I'm not aware of a very specific assignment, not being part of the planning meetings, to whether or not anybody was truly assigned, dedicated to not only the building but that immediate grounds. I don't have that answer. One of our police officers, long-term, police officer here with our department. Once that suspicious individual report came out and our police arrived, in the immediate area of the building, they did do a perimeter search. Were unable to see the person on top of the building from their vantage point. So one of our other police officers, two total, literally boosted one of our police officers up high enough in the air to grab hold of the edge of the roof. Approximate height of 12 feet from ground to where he was able to grab a handhold. Officer pulled himself up to where his head was above the roof. Did observe an individual on the roof. Individual was identified as having a weapon and did point that firearm at our officer. That time, our officer took up a defensive position from hanging from a ledge, ducked his head, did in fact lose his grip, fell approximately 8 feet, did sustain an injury to his ankle. While prone on the ground, both the lifting officer and the prone officer both called in, identifying the individual on the roof as being armed. We did not man the actual entrance gates. I've heard the same story, but I don't have any other information than what's being broadcast right now. I can tell you, if there is none of that spilled over into this building, and none of it's been directed, to our officers, there has, to the best of my knowledge, not been any direct communication with members of Secret Service to our officials. There are ongoing interviews with all law enforcement that were at the event, regardless of what their roles were. So we're all just waiting on that information to be all put together into one public report. I think there's some misconception about overall response. I can only speak for our officers transitioning from what was supposed to be a primary traffic control assistance to where it became a person of suspicion or a suspicious person. I think our law enforcement did exactly what training taught them to do, and they did their job. How subsequent events played out, that's another thing for what I hope to be a really complete report on the incident to educate everybody. A gap in time with unknowns, that leads to all the angry emails and calls that township elected officials, myself, and especially the police are receiving. Again, hopefully the report is as timely as possible and given in a way that the public can clearly follow the timelines and how different components happened, and everybody not just learns from it, but just not living in fear, but just living, get away from it. I think I'd welcome any kind of a review that gets benefit, from the outcome. Unfortunate tragedy. Certainly hope that whatever is out there to be learned from it gets learned, and we apply that to everything going forward. So I have not been asked any questions. Again, I was more of an administrative support and offered to help with logistics, but I wasn't in any of the actual planning meetings. I wasn't in any of the formulation of an operations report that was given to our officers, which we generated internally. So I have not been asked any questions. As far as the overall interviews that I'm aware of that are taking place that the FBI are spearheading, I think they're all fact-finding from everybody that was involved. My understanding is they're going to take place this week. What the duration is, I don't know. Yeah, so I think the overall operation plan that the Butler Township Police developed for their role in the traffic control, well laid out, well planned, intercommunicated with other agencies, that were tasked with the event as a whole. I thought that their response to going from traffic control and/or potentially patrol into a potential active shooter, kind of a response, spoke well to their training, spoke well to them doing their job. They responded as timely as they were notified, and took probably an unorthodox method of trying to identify anybody on the roof because there wasn't access to it.
See, that's the craziest thing right there. That is, I think, one of the biggest mysteries. If the local police were not able to quickly get onto the roof, how the hell did this kid get onto the roof? I mean, apparently there was not a ladder. The initial report said there was a ladder. I saw some images that showed a ladder being there, but I mean, obviously the police are gonna, you would think, use a ladder, or there would be some clear picture of a ladder. I mean, the pictures I saw weren't super clear, so totally possible there wasn't a ladder. And I would venture to say, even though I'm a super skeptical mindset of this, I mean, if I really let loose on what I thought was how I actually think things played out here. This video would probably get taken down, but if the local police were not able to get on top of this roof easily without having to climb on top of each other's shoulders, who let this kid get on the roof? How'd this kid get onto the roof? Like, so the two options are either he climbed up somehow when the police weren't able to do so themselves, or did he go from inside the building to on top of the building when the team of police and snipers were supposedly, or I mean, reportedly inside the building? That's a major mystery to find out.
Did, one officer did get hurt, but I'd like to think that their timely identification hopefully helped, minimize as best as possible the overall situation. I can honestly say here right now, I have not seen any type of email and or call-in correspondence that was direct threatening. However, the harshness of criticism from both sides of the spectrum been pretty brutal and relentless. It's been going on for roughly 2 days now. Again, I think when the entirety of the investigation is done and we have the full, complete story of how this whole event unfolded, hopefully those that are as quick to send a hate email can send back an apology just as quickly.
All right, so I guess you could say you feel for the guy. I mean, even being from the high end of the skeptic conspiratorial side of things, from the jump I was like, all right, come on, are the local police really going to be in on this thing, or are they just being caught off guard? I mean, I don't think that the local Philadelphia police or local Pennsylvania that the local Pennsylvania police and buttfuck county, middle of nowhere, are part of the deep state. I don't even think that the majority of the Secret Service is part of the deep state. It's got to be like a small percentage of it that are calling the shots or compromised somehow. But some of the major questions that I still am dying to know are: one, how many total shots were fired? Because I have not seen any source saying a definitive, verifiable number of how many shots were fired here. Now you have things coming out like this that are really weird. And I mean, figuratively weird, because I was sort of saying something from like this from the beginning.
Behind Trump. He said the sharpshooter shot to the left. He killed the gentleman in the water tower here.
And they had been right by the fence where the other shooter was. There was one I heard in the water tower. There was one by the fence.
And still, obviously, initial reports. But what we do know...
First crack of the gunfire, and I just screamed, it's the sniper, and he was firing down toward the water tower.
That's what we're hearing.
And
he could...
So something that a lot of people are starting to mention now is stuff coming from the water tower, which I said from the jump, CIA book 101, always have a patsy that's very visible, the point of attention, and draw attention away from the real pro. Because, I think, and I think that we all think, that there are powerful forces behind this to get, the Secret Service to stand down. And if you have powerful forces like that at work, you're going to leave the whole thing up to some 20-year-old little shithead who's a weirdo and probably doesn't know how to operate a gun, and he's using an AR for a long-range shot. I mean, you're going to let all the stakes ride on that? That was weird to me in the first place. I mean, but, it's a good story for them if they want to make it look like it's not a professional job. But my assumption from the jump was that the professional was far out of sight and maximum attention was allowed to be drawn onto this kid. So I think there's a lot to be learned from the ballistic map of this, which has not come out yet. There's not even a trace of a ballistics map that's showing each shot that was fired, which direction it went in, which I think will be very interesting once that comes out, because there's all sorts of weird things that had bullets in them. Like you saw that machine that was hit that had the hydro fluid spraying out of it. You had multiple people injured in the crowd, one killed. So was that all? And then I didn't even realize until I saw that 3D cartoon image that you've probably seen by now, where like 3 bullets went past Trump's head, apparently. But then if you listen to the audio of the thing, it's bang, 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 pause for about 3 seconds, bang, 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 bang. Yet you have reports saying that Secret Service killed the guy in the first shot. And then I also saw a report, I think from CBS, that said the Secret Service fired 26 seconds after Trump was hit, which is not the case if you listen to the audio. So there's all sorts of weird discrepancies between reports. And I mean, we have the trusty old FBI running point on the thing. So I think they're desperately holding on to as much information as possible to make this confusing and hoping that it goes away. But man, it's the 21st century. It's not like a Dealey Plaza JFK thing where there's only 3 networks and 1 camera on the thing. I mean, this is somebody's got to take the fall here for this. And I imagine it would probably be the Secret Service director, but it's gonna be interesting to see how they make her take the fall. I wonder if she's had suicidal thoughts. And then this one's just for pure ridiculousness entertainment purposes. Look at what this shithead said. He doesn't even think that Trump got shot in the air. He thinks a piece of glass hit him.
That's fine. Where I am at this point is it's been 3 days going on 4 since this horrific event occurred. A person lost their life, 2 have been severely injured. And yet we've not received a medical report from the hospital, nor have we received a medical report from the campaign or from the Trump organization about the extent of the damage to his ear. If he was shot by a high caliber bullet, there should probably be very little ear there. And so we'd like to know that. Is there cosmetic surgery involved? What is the prognosis for recovery? Were there stitches? What is the extent and nature of the damage to his ear? Was it caused by a bullet as opposed to, as some reports from those on the scene, other reporters, saying that it was actually shards of glass from the teleprompter itself, not the bullet. So there are a lot of questions around.
My question for you is, are you trying to be the most hated person on earth here? I mean, he was turned into an immortalized, loved superhero in rare form. Like, I mean, he was already a martyr, but now he's a martyr on steroids, and you're going to take that position? Get the hell out of here. And now, for the grand finale, the key points, if you take anything away from this, you know, a lot of people think that the establishment, deep state globalists, they don't like Trump just because, you know, he's offensive and he says mean things. No, it's so much deeper than that. It's globalism versus nationalism. Case in point right here, the most evil, sick, twisted person on the face of the earth, or at least up there in the top, you know, percentile. Listen to what Yuval Harari, the person who calls us useless eaters, says about Trump.
And that Trump might be elected again shortly.
I think it's very likely. And if it happens, it is likely to be the kind of like the death blow to what remains of the global order. And he says it openly. Now, again, it should be clear that many of these politicians, they present a false dichotomy, a false binary vision of the world, as if you have to choose between patriotism and globalism, between being loyal to your nation and being loyal to some kind of, I don't know, global government or whatever.
So what he means by that, let me translate that for you. The vision for the globalists is for America, which is already a welfare country, unfortunately, to turn into a global welfare where the rest of the world can siphon off America's wealth to bring America down to its level and rise everybody up to America's level and have us all under one world system. That's what all this mass immigration is. That's what all this chaos created by laws that don't make any logical sense comes from. That's what these LGBTQ policies are coming from, where they want us to slow economic growth, slow the birth rate. That's I don't know why. That's what happens when you become an elite billionaire person who's in the top inner circle of the world. But that's been their fixation for decades, is to limit economic growth and limit population growth. And the way to do that, to have that kind of influence in the entire world, they have to weaken America to the point where it could actually be influenced by these outside NGO type organizations. Because right now, you know, America with a nationalist president like Trump is too strong to bring down or to influence. You know, they're trying to get these people in power that they can control and bribe or blackmail to do the globalist policies that are puts America last instead of first, and to siphon off the wealth of America to weaken it to where it doesn't have global influence anymore. So that's the vision that the global elites have. That's why they hate Trump, because he's against every aspect of that. And I mean, I don't know, maybe you hate America, but if you like having a strong, united, culturally rich country and not having it, pillaged by illegal immigrants and people who want to siphon off of the welfare state, I think it's a pretty logical answer. I mean, Jesus, at this point, like do you like crime? Do you like a bad economy? Where I saw something the other day. This guy did a cool little experiment on his Walmart app. He had an order from, I think, 4 or 5 years ago, and it allowed him to do the auto rebuy, like the exact same order from 4 years ago. It went from $120 to $450. So, the government's trying to gaslight you, tell you that inflation's defeated. Oh, yeah, we won. Blah, 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 blah. We cut rates now. No, they are gaslighting the ever living shit out of you with what food costs. And not to mention, they're shrinking the amount of food that gets packaged into something and then increasing the price. Oh, I wonder why. Maybe it's because we put sanctions on, I think, 10 to 20% of global fertilizer producers because of the Ukraine-Russia thing. That was unnecessary because we didn't have to put fucking missiles in Ukraine. And, we didn't have to take sanctions off of Iran to unlock tens of billions of dollars to them to give to Hezbollah, Hamas, and the Houthis, who are now causing havoc in the Middle East. Now the Red Sea shut down. Can't get through the Suez Canal. Like, both the Ukraine, Russia, and the Israel Hamas situation are incredibly avoidable. But I digress. Hopefully, if you're a clear-minded, objective, patriotic, American-loving person, I mean, you see this by now. But I think a lot of people have arrived to the point where they're like, oh, okay, I see what's right and wrong here. But I don't think too many people understand the whole globalism aspect of this, which is something I want to delve deeply into in the future. And I think that starts with the book that I talk about called The Committee of 300, because from what I've gathered, that seems to be the head of the snake. But, I'm always looking for the head of the snake, because that's something I've always been super curious about. We know that there's levels to this thing. We know who's high up there, but who is really the driving force behind that? Because at the end of the day, that's where the influence of telling the Secret Service to look the other way came from. Hope this was helpful. Love you guys. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe, like, share, the whole nine. Until next time, goodbye.